when we got to the work that we were going to be doing in 2021, the mainline lanes, we had a way for you all to be able to get across I-69 in a safe manner. And so that essentially is kind of the reasoning for the work that we did last year throughout central and northern Morgan County. Additionally, when we think about the corridor as a whole, whenever we're delivering interstate projects, it's kind of like a parfait. You have those different layers, and once you get the heavy equipment out there, there are so many things that have already transpired. The stakeholder meetings that we had with you all and your neighbors during NEPA to understand local access, the right-of-way acquisition process, and the utility relocation process. And so the bullets we've included on the slide here is just to kind of give you an idea of the order of magnitude on the utilities that we have moved and are still in the process of moving throughout the corridor. I think down here in Martinsville, Morgan County, you all are very fortunate in that we're past that phase with you all, and we're mostly just building the local road connectivity. But to think about 9 miles of water lines and sewer lines, 25 miles of power lines, 27 miles of gas lines, and 52 miles of cable, fiber, and telephone lines. When you think about Martinsville to Indianapolis, that's a 27-mile corridor. And some of those utilities run along the main line, and some of those utilities are along those access roads. So it's been kind of a Herculean effort to get all those utilities identified, safely moved out of the way, and functioning with as minimal disruption as possible. So just want to make sure that you guys kind of had an appreciation for that layer of this. Another unique opportunity we've had as we've been delivering the corridor, we have a new piece of road on the local road network down in Martinsville that's going to be renamed Ruth Rusey Way. So it's in that kind of Ohio Street shopping area. We had the opportunity to meet with Ruth's family last summer, and she was very honored to be able to have a road named after her, and kind of also is just a unique way to memorialize the contributions that Ruth has given to the community over her years as a Martinsville, Morgan County resident. So thought it would be nice to call that to your attention. If you weren't aware that we did that, just another unique thing we've had the opportunity to do along the way. So now we'll move into talking about what's happening in 2021. So as many of you are familiar, we did close Mainline in Martinsville. So that was about 5 miles of road. This is, excuse me, got a little bit ahead of myself. So we have our official detour that's State Road 39 over to 67 back to 144. And really the benefit of being able to do that full closure was safety. Safety for the motorists, safety for our construction workers. Once we're able to reopen Mainline in Martinsville, you'll be able to see, certainly from the local road network, you can see all the earth that's being moved and the new overpasses, especially there at 252, that just the size difference of the new roadway versus what it was previously can kind of give you that insight to the safety benefits on both sides. And additionally, it was able to save us a construction season. So I know that there's a lot of grace and patience that goes along with having such a detour in place, but the economy scale is there for the workers, and it's there for you all as the traveling public. Next slide, please. So here are a couple of photos of just some of our active bridge construction work. So we have the northbound lanes over Indian Creek, and then the additional overpass that we have currently under construction there at State Road 39, just to give a couple of snapshots of some of the work that's underway and probably a little bit closer vantage point than what you get when you're on State Road 39. Next slide, please. Here are some additional ones moving up into Morgan County itself. So we have the southbound lanes over Clear Creek, so those are just to the north of here, and then also the southbound structures over Dry Swale. So these are kind of essentially between where we are presently at your church up to Henderson Ford Road. These are a couple of snapshots of some of the structures that are being put in place along the main line. And then additionally, though if you follow us on social media, you've probably seen us ping folks about the foam blocks on a couple of occasions, but at State Road 252 and I-69, so at that location, I-69 is actually going to go over State Road 252, so that as you're coming southbound down into Martinsville, you really you still get that nice vista with the rolling hills and the town, and that was something that was very important when we went through the NEPA process with the city of Martinsville and many of the stakeholders of wanting to make sure we preserve that vista. And so as part of that, and part of also the aggressive construction schedule that we have, the solution that was brought to the table by our geotech folks was these essentially geofoam blocks. And essentially what they do is they allow us to have a faster settlement time when we're building that bridge. They're just as sturdy as the normal materials that you would put there, but it just allows us to do it in a more timely and efficient manner. And so essentially that's what those large white blocks are that you see up at 252 are geofoam, and it also requires, it being a foam material, less fill. Next slide, please. Okay. And then at Morgan Street to State Road 144, so sometimes, especially if you look at the maps on our project website as well, you'll see us refer to things as Contract 2 or Contract 4 or Contract 5. Essentially, Contract 2 is Martinsville. Contract 4 extends from Morgan Street all the way up to Fairview Road in northern Johnson County, and so that's all the main line and interchanges. And then Contract 5 is essentially the northern part of Johnson County and Marion County and along 465. And so one of the things that, as we were looking at the potential closure in Martinsville, we were looking to the north to say, okay, if our official detour route is 39 to 67 to 144, what other things can we get accomplished in that area when we have a lower volume of traffic? And so essentially from Morgan Street to State Road 144, as you've probably experienced much of this year so far, we have it restricted down to one lane in each direction. And our focus has been, with the traffic on the northbound lanes, the first half of this year, really getting those southbound lanes built, the new bridges associated with the southbound lanes, and all of the paving. And then the temporary signal in the northern part of the county at Banter Road kind of helps with some of the ingress and egress. We certainly have the temp signal at Henderson Ford Road. But I guess from an overall phasing perspective, our goal was get the southbound lanes done, and then when those are finished, we'll put the traffic on the southbound lanes and we'll start working on the northbound lanes. And so we're still on track to be able to complete that switch over this year. You'll have noticed recently we have a crossover that we just started in the last couple days near Henderson Ford Road, and essentially what that has provided us the opportunity is to get a little bit of a jump start on the work on the northbound lanes. And so while we're finishing up the cut area, essentially in the Myra Lane and southern, Myra Lane to Morgan Street, it allows us to put folks on those new southbound lanes and get a jump start on those northbound lanes and those northbound bridges. And so that is something similar to the safety we talked about in Martinsville with the full closure. Having the lower traffic volumes and being able to restrict down to a single lane in each direction has really afforded us the opportunity to get that economy of scale in the Morgan Street to 144 portion of the corridor as well. And so that's why we focused our Contract 4 resources in 2021 have predominantly been focused along that portion of the corridor as well. Oh, sorry, catching up with the photos that are associated with the slide. We have a couple of slides specifically dedicated to the Myra Lane area, because I know that is kind of at the center of how you all get here, how you all interact as a congregation. And so the next couple of slides are going to talk about kind of how the access works. So when we closed Myra Lane, this is essentially for folks that were on the west side there, how they would have gotten and continue to get on and off State Road 37. So essentially going up old State Road 37 to Egbert, to Henderson Ford Road, and kind of back and forth. That doesn't necessarily get folks here to the church, but at least gets folks who are trying to get to a destination point further to the north familiar with how that access works. The access specifically for the church, you can see the two maps, and we've added your church icon on there so that you can see which direction, whether you're on the east side or the west side, how you would be able to access the church. And many of you, I'm sure, have probably already been, utilizing these routes to get here on Sunday and for other activities. But really the reason, and we know it's a bit of a disruption, but we appreciate your grace as we go through these growing pains together. The reason for that change in connectivity, as you can see from this slide, and if you essentially look over at Myra Lane when you're driving on Main Line, we are lowering the main line by 20 feet. And what that's going to do when we're in our final condition is that where State Road 37 was previously, so in 2020 we were driving here to church and you just turn off of 37, that's where the overpass will be at grade. And so those new lanes will actually be 20 feet lower. So your overpass will just kind of gracefully come across from the west side where Myra Lane is and land approximately where the church drive is. And so that's that is the reason for the phasing of the construction out there as they cut out of the hillside. We're using those materials to build up embankment at other interchanges along the corridor, but that is also what has informed kind of the phasing and ultimately kind of the adjustment in your access as we work through that construction phasing. So additionally, as I was mentioning about moving dirt for I-69, so the materials that we've taken out of that hillside, which is around 600,000 cubic yards of material, so not a small volume of dump trucks by any stretch of the imagination, but that's being taken to locations where we are rehabbing bridges, adding new bridges, we're putting embankment for interchanges, really trying to make sure that we were able to utilize those materials in other places along the corridor and make sure we're doing that as efficiently as possible. I think there are just a couple additional slides. Before, when I was talking about like the parfait of the project, you know, we have the NEPA part, we have the stakeholder coordination, but we impact resources as well along the corridor. We impact wetlands, we impact streams. There are threatened and endangered species. We really try not to impact those, but we have to mitigate for all of those things. And so we have about a half a dozen mitigation sites throughout the corridor that they're off. I think all but two are off of the main line, where we go and essentially, in coordination with Army Corps of Engineers and IDEM and DNR, identified sites where we do replanting, reforestation, wetland mitigation, just to kind of offset the impacts that we've had to those sort of resources along the corridor and throughout the construction. So this is a good example. No, you're okay. We built Benway Weirs at one of our mitigation sites out in the White River because there are a couple of locations where the White River, one in particular at Stotts Creek, gets a little bit too close to 37 currently. We'd prefer it not get that close to future I-69. And so our hydraulics department did a thorough analysis of how the White River was behaving along this corridor. And that was the recommendation, is a couple of locations we have Benway Weirs to kind of keep the White River's channel where it should remain and less of a meander. But that's something that's just unique and different. It's something kind of out of sight, out of mind. You wouldn't necessarily know it's out there unless you're maybe on a canoe on the White River, but something unique nonetheless that as we're going about building this corridor, trying to minimize and mitigate for the impacts that we've had. There are a variety of traffic shifts, traffic phasing that happen as part of I-69, not only on the main line, but with some of the local access roads. So recently we opened the new State Road 44 bridge over I-69. The ramps will open later this fall. We have State Road 252 Hospital Drive. Once State Road 44 opened, the connectivity to State Road 252 changed. So folks used to be able to go down those northbound lanes. You now take Reuben to Morgan Street. That's so we can get a jump on building those northbound lanes and building the northbound portion of the bridge. And then the Ohio Street Mahaleysville Road area is still under progress. You know, it's a work in progress, but Ohio Street does have open connectivity east-west through the area. And then State Road 37 from 144 to Henderson Ford Road, which is what I touched on a little bit earlier with the traffic switching over from being solely on those northbound lanes to now being on the southbound lanes. And so there'll be a couple of other adjustments, but our goal is to give advance notice on those, to have them well signed so that it just feels kind of like a natural transition when you're out there trying to navigate the new configuration. So a couple of summer milestones to talk about. So State Road 37 from Egbert Road to Morgan Street, we've kind of touched upon that. As far as later this summer, we hope to have that open once we can finish, we finished excavating, we just need to finish paving and improving that connectivity. Southview Drive from State Road 39 to Morton, that will be open, so if you're certainly welcome to go to our project website and look at the maps, but State Road 39's interchange will have a roundabout that is part of it, and it will provide connectivity to Southview Drive. So for folks that want to go to Indy's or want to go to the Taco Bell or the KFC or the car dealership there, you know, they wouldn't have to go to Ohio Street and double back. They would, you know, when it's fully functional, they would just be able to exit at State Road 39 and then use that local frontage road, which would be Southview Drive, to be able to get to those businesses. So the interchange won't be open until the end of the construction season this year, but there will at least be that connectivity for folks to be able to get up and down that portion of the corridor. And then related to that, there will be Burton Lane will close later this year, and that will be a permanent closure. There will not, in our final condition, there won't be an overpass there or an underpass. So hence the also importance of that Southview Drive connection for folks to be able to get to those businesses. A couple of other important items to note. So we do have noise barriers. Predominantly throughout Martinsville, as far as this portion of the corridor. Those are the areas that have that kind of hatching. So at the left part of the screen, that's Morton Avenue, moving up to the Ohio Street area, I believe. So we have them on the northwest side between 39 and Grand Valley, and then they vary in height from about 6 feet to 22 feet. And really that is related to the height of the fill. You know, we're not necessarily going to, you know, have a homeowner that can see out over a noise wall and their neighbor has a full wall. It's really meant, when we say 6 to 22 feet, we mean the portion of the wall that we're building, not necessarily that it's all starting at a uniform level point in the ground. So we also have several locations where we will have roundabouts. So 6 of the 7 new I-69 interchanges in Morgan and Johnson County will have roundabouts. So that will be something that will be new and unique as the corridor starts to be delivered. Sierra 39 Morton Avenue and I-69 ramps, as you can see from the screen, that is one of the locations with the roundabouts. We will also have roundabouts at the State Road 252 Hospital Drive and State Road 44 ramps, and also Kramertown Loop and State Road 252. So where there's currently that temporary signal, that's the location we'll be putting a roundabout in later this year. And then Henderson Ford Road has ramps as well, roundabouts. You'll be able to experience those once we get the ramps built out later this year. Okay, and then I'm going to hand it off to Tim to talk about what to expect and our year-end goals and some additional public involvement information.
I feel like I don't need to talk now. You just got a round of applause. So, well, good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about, Sarah just went over about what was done last year, and even when we started this endeavor in 2019, I'm going to sort of go over what we're going to expect at the end of the year and what we can even expect next year as we wrap all of this up. But as you can see, there's a lot of activities going on. And obviously we all know about the Myra Lane, and I wanted to put something in context for you real quick. When she mentioned the 600,000 cubic yards of dirt that's being moved out here, does anyone know how many cubic yards fill a dump truck? 12. So it gives you the status of the magnitude of the amount of work that's going right outside your facility here. And just whatever you think it is, you can usually multiply it by 10, and that's basically where we're at. So just a momentous occasion. So one of the things I want to talk a little bit about is what's going to happen at the end of this year. We're all going through a lot of construction right now, a lot of utility coordination, as Sarah mentioned, a lot of dirt, a lot of mitigation. So these are some of the things that's going to go on. First of all, at the end of the year, we are going to open up State Road 37. As Sarah mentioned, that was a lot of collaboration between INDOT and the city of Martinsville and local officials about whether or not we maintain that, we build that main line and take 2 years worth of construction, or we close it for the 2021 season and be able to reopen it at the end of the year. And so it was a joint decision with the city and INDOT to go ahead and close it. That way we can get in there, and as Sarah mentioned, you know, it's safer for the construction workers, it's safer for the motoring public, and it'll all wrap up at the end of the year. By allowing that, we'll have no more stoplights south of Henderson Ford Road, at least here in Morgan County, so that'll be great. We'll have 17 new miles of I-69 constructed, as well as the interchanges at State Road 39, 252, 44, and State Road 39. Most of those will be done. There'll be some wrap-up work in 2022, but you already see them forming right now. You see the piles starting to be driven. You've seen the bridges now as we opened up the 44 bridge. So a lot of that will take place early next week, later this year as well. These are some of the things about Rogers Road at the interchange. Obviously, with the new State Road 39 bridge, as you can see, the The roundabouts that Sarah mentioned will be at State Road 39. We'll have the Ohio Street interchange. A lot of coordination during the planning phase of whether or not to put an interchange at Ohio Street. But obviously one is being constructed, and you can see that being formed today. We have the 252 access. As some of you already mentioned, we already see the foam blocks that we just talked a little bit about that interchange being really formed up and really taking place by the end of this year, so that you can just the connections with Kramertown Loop. We'll have a signal down at 252 in Kramertown Loop. And then we go into the State Road 44 access. One of the things on the State Road 44 access is during the preliminary phasing plan, we did not know whether we wanted to interchange at State Road 44 or 252, so we came up with a split interchange so that we could provide access both at State Road 44 and 252. We know those are state roads. We know it's very important to the mobility here in Martinsville as well as Morgan County. It's a statewide interest to keep those connections open, and so that's how we came up with the split interchange concept at 44 and 252. One of the unique things that we did here in the city of Martinsville, we've done a lot of unique things. We talked about the Ruth Rusey Way, and just a great community icon, and be able to honor her and all her contributions to the community. But the other thing that we did is, in coordination with local officials and with the local aesthetics committee here in Martinsville, we came up with the concept of monuments. And you can see those being constructed right now, especially down at State Road 39. If any of you have seen those monuments beginning to take shape, sort of like sprouting out of the ground. But those monuments are about 40 feet tall. They will be a welcoming sign to the city of Martinsville. They're focused on the city of Martinsville. They were a lot of input from some local community members here. The local chamber had a lot to do with that, as well as the previous administration, and talking about how can, when we come into Martinsville, how do we know we are here in the community? Sarah mentioned, in addition to the monuments, these little planning tools when you're traveling south on 69 making sure 69 goes over 252, so that when you're coming over the crest, you can see the city and the valley. Those are little things that probably most people don't realize took place for years during the environmental phase that Sarah and I met with most of you, and some of you, 7 years ago during that planning phase, and now they're actually becoming a reality. But these monuments are going to be a good visionary, iconic structure to welcome you to Martinsville, both at 44 and coming from the north, and State Road 39 coming from the south. So something that it'll be interesting to watch. The outside of those monuments will be bricked. What we did was we actually took chips from the county courthouse in Martinsville and matched them up, and so the color of those bricks will match the county courthouse. And again, it's just a tribute to basically the county and the heritage here in Martinsville. We didn't really talk a little bit about the Grand Valley Boulevard Bridge, but that's an iconic bridge as well, and that's already completed. But again, a lot of those local aesthetics were created by a local aesthetics team, and really to pay homage to the heritage here at Martinsville, whether it's the brick, whether it's the fins that represents the artisans. A lot of little details in that bridge that if you're driving by, of course you haven't driven underneath it because it's not been available yet, but well, especially until they closed it. But a lot of those little historic things are built into the design there that will last for a generation for those bridges as well. Looking in the next year of what's going to happen next year, we're going to have the Morgan Street extension south of Country Club Road. You can see that grade being done right now. New overpasses at Teeters Road and Myra Lane, obviously right out here, that I'm sure all of you will be excited about. The entrance and exit ramps at Henderson Ford Road. Right now we have the bridges construction. You can see the ramps being constructed right now, but next year that interchange will be opened up, and so it'll be a fully accessible interchange early next year. And then we're going to start resurfacing some of the local street networks here in Martinsville. Morgan Street, Main Street, Hospital Drive, Southview Drive. So before we leave town, we want to make sure that we leave it in great condition. And so a lot of those street repaving will happen next year as well. So all that will be constructed. It will be open to traffic. We'll do some cleanup work. We'll potentially do some leftover seeding, some landscaping cleanup, but that'll wrap up all next year as well. Follow our progress. I'm not exactly sure. Well, there is a little thing that, again, we have been in the city of Martinsville for a long time. We have had many public meetings in the area. I will tell you, this community, whenever we had a meeting at the Martinsville High School, we'd usually have them here, we'd have them in Johnson County and Center Grove, and we'd have them in Perry Township, just because it is a 26-mile corridor. Martinsville always had the largest attendance, and it was just because we know people care, we know people, this is going to be such an impactful project in a positive way to the community and to the county. That's the amount of input that happened, and we were able to incorporate most, if not all, those ideas that were generated out of all those public meetings. But we are in design now, we're actually into construction, and so there's a lot of ways you can follow the progress of what we're doing. Obviously, Sarah and I go out and we talk to a lot of community members, we talk to a lot of civic groups and organizations. Anytime somebody wants a presentation, we find a way to accommodate that. We work with your local chamber, we work with the county commissioners, the local administration, so a lot of activities. But some of the things that you can do to keep in contact with us, obviously there's a website out there that we have a traffic access map, so as long-term or significant traffic movements are being modified, we keep those updated on the website with our traffic access maps. Anything that there's going to be a long-term closure, we keep that up to date. We have what we call a corridor highlights map that you can start from the south and go all the way to the north. Obviously, most of you know what's going on here in Morgan County. You may not know what we're doing in Johnson and Morgan County. This is something that will take you through like a storyboard that tells you exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it, and when we're doing it, as far as that's available as well. Construction start maps. Obviously here in Martinsville, you don't need to know when things are going to start. They're already there and they're wrapping up. But north of here, there's a lot of activities going on, especially in Johnson, and as Marion County gets ramped up later on this year and even next year, there'll be a lot of closures. There will be a lot of maintenance of traffic. And so when we talk closures, we're not closing anything off on 37, but we're talking just maintenance of traffic ideas, maintenance of traffic operations that we need to control of. So you can talk about, you can visit these maps to see where we're going to be constructing and when as well. Obviously, we have the social media channels that most people do, that you know, your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that is there that we update on a daily basis to make sure that we keep people informed of what we're doing. And then we also have newsletters, and if you want to, if you don't want to get on social media, maybe you're not a Twitter user or an Instagram follower, obviously you can just get an email, a weekly email. You can sign up just by this email right there. So we try to be as gauged in the construction phase as we were in the planning phase of this. So those are some things that we can continue to do to make sure that we keep people informed. We have a full service customer service team that we have, so if someone sends in an email, we try to respond at least within a day or two if somebody has got a question, but we have a fully dedicated customer service team with us that Sarah and I manage to make sure that we get back to the person or organization if they have a question or a concern. So it's a very interactive, proactive type of outreach we're doing, and we enjoy doing it because, again, the project is just Sarah mentions it as a parfait. In the spirit of the Olympics, it's almost like the 400-meter relay, where we started out in the planning, and it's being orchestrated very routinely, making sure that this happens. Everything from the mitigation sites, the planning of over 200,000 trees and shrubs that we're doing, to the utilities that we talked about, to all of, it's just not the road part. There is so much behind the scenes, from the aesthetics to the utilities. We have over 1,000 workers out there right now actively working on utility relocations, construction. So the one thing that we do ask at the end of the day is to help keep everybody safe. We realize that some of this is an inconvenience, but there are men and women out there who are members of this community working out there, whether it's utilities or roadway, and we can't stress enough to just help keep them safe. If it takes you a few extra minutes, it's not that big of a deal. We'll get through it, but obviously we want to make sure that we get through all this without any serious injuries or worse. So if you could help us do that and help communicate that to your members as well as your families, your kids, we'd appreciate that. So at this time, I think Sarah and I will be open to, we'll answer any question you have. Well, we'll take any question you have. We will answer anything that we know. Obviously, there's a lot of things, and we are in we feel like this is a very safe environment for Sarah and I to be in. So it's not that, it's not always been that way. Let me assure you. When she and I were doing these meetings in 2013, 2014, not here in Martinsville, I'm not going to say this, but in other areas, we would walk out thinking, or we would walk in thinking, oh my gosh, here we go. So we have been a great partnership. She and I have worked together for 8 years on this, and it's been, I just can't emphasize how this is going to improve the quality of life here in Morgan County, here in central Indiana, here for the state of Indiana. It's going to be so much, it's just going to be a much more efficient roadway, but most importantly, it's going to be a safer roadway. It's going to be safer, and it's going to provide this opportunity, economic opportunity for this part of the state and for this part of the area that didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So we're really looking forward to it, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So Sarah, why don't you and I can, and Ralph, no tough questions.
It's an excellent clarification. So on the right, the red there is essentially State Road 37 being closed. You'll see kind of to the south where does that have a light? You see that?
Yeah.
So yes, so this is currently the same condition as far as State Road 37 being closed. This should be State Road 44. This is now open. So in all fairness, we do need to update the graphic because this connection is no longer there. But the manner in which, so currently you would just, currently you would just stay on 37 and you would access here, correct. When we close the northbound lanes, which will be later this summer, so essentially you would still have your connection to be able to get out northbound onto 37. The drive is shifted a little bit closer to the building because we have to we have to take down the grade of main line and then we have to build the overpass.
So is the one on the right different than the way we are now?
Yes, So where you are now is kind of a hybrid because you use 37 now. This connection assumes that Teeters Road is open and up to the church.
So I tell you what, Ralph, why don't we we'll go back and we'll update the graphic both what we're going to do for the next 3 months as well as the after. Because I know you were asking me before, that Myra Lane goes over, it'll connect about where your driveway's at now.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Eventually.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
For a temporary drive, yes.
Right.
Before they do the complete flip.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, we can put a graphic together that addresses that. You know,
Yeah.
one thing that I think is also important, and we can make sure that we maybe delineate this in the graphic as well, is that you'll still only be able to get here using the northbound connectivity. So until all the lanes are open, you won't be able to take southbound I-69 or southbound State Road 37 and take a left to get over here to the church. So you'll almost always have to go south to go north to get to the church. Yes, there's a question here. Yes. Yes.
At
Yes,
Myra.
At Myra. Yes, that's correct. So people going northbound would, well, if they were already in Martinsville, I would say don't get on I-69
Right.
because there will be this frontage road that will connect. It's called the Morgan Street, we're calling it currently the Morgan Street Extension. So it's built all the way down to just north of the golf course currently. That will connect down to current Morgan Street. And so for folks in Martinsville, you would just be able to take that extension up to Myra and then come across to the church. And so if it was somebody perhaps further south, like maybe somebody down in the Liberty Church area that doesn't need to wind through the local road network, they would take I-69 to probably State Road 44 and then connect over to Morgan Street and then just follow Morgan Street and the new extension up to Myra. And then I think also, I guess, for people further to the east, so if you're somewhere in maybe like this area, then what you would do, I mean, you could either go up to Egbert and across and around. There's also going to be that overpass at Teeters, and that overpass at Teeters ties directly into that Morgan Street extension. And so you would essentially cross Teeters, get on Morgan Street, and go up to Myra. Yes, ma'am.
It's really, really hard for us to hear back here. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
no, I know the people are speaking. Several questions. When are they going to finish the frontage road from the end of Morgan Street up to what would be Murray Lane coming across? That little stretch in there that goes in front of the country club. Right now, we all have to go back around Old Country Club Road. It's very, very dangerous. There's been lots of accidents, and we're wondering when that little strip will be open for the frontage road.
So it's currently contemplated in our schedule to be built next year. However, we have been in conversation with the contractor to see if it can be moved forward to this fall. That's something that we should have a better handle on, I would say, by mid-August, because the contractor's focus has been with the mainline traffic switch, and we've had a couple of utilities in that area that unfortunately we've not been the most efficient in getting out of the way. So my most optimistic hope would be that we would be able to get it accomplished this fall, but I can't firmly commit to that at the moment.
Okay, the other thing, we didn't hear Ralph at all, so I don't know if you might have already answered this.
Sure.
But we keep hearing that our entrance on Meyer Lane is going to switch to up here somewhere.
Yes.
Now, when is that going to happen?
So that, as soon as we move the traffic onto the new southbound lanes, part of that switch will involve the adjustment of that drive. So I would anticipate that within the next couple of months. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, there will be kind of similar to how we have the advanced like DMS boards, church traffic, use caution. It will be a similar configuration. Yes. Yeah, and then you'll still kind of go north. Mm-hmm. And that was also when Tim was when we were answering Ralph's question about putting together another graphic for the church so that you all know where that access point is, can kind of anticipate that turning movement, and then also to kind of supplement the maps we have here on the screen to just kind of better contextualize the timing of the adjustments. And so that's something we'll put together.
This is strictly a woman's question.
Sure.
Because you'll see all my decorating part. The bridge going to Walmart,
Mm-hmm.
didn't have all the lights up, and then they put all the lights up and they were matching.
Yes.
We were out of town for a while and came back, and suddenly they put up new lights that don't match together.
Yes. Yes.
And also,
I can answer your first question if you would like. So the initial lights that were selected by the aesthetics committee in Martinsville, when we installed them, we had a wind load problem, meaning like they were wobbling due to the wind being that high up in the air. And so when we went back to the supplier, they informed us that they did not have that style available. And we went to the city of Martinsville and asked what their preference was. And there was a bit of a back order on those arms. You'll notice some kind of arc, some have like fins that kind of protrude off the back. The current administration in Martinsville, their preference are the ones that have the fins. And so we are currently waiting for the remaining matching set, if you will, to arrive. When we placed the order, they said that it was a 3-month wait time in order to get the materials. So we should have those in the next month or so, and so you'll see our crews out there changing them out to make everything look uniform. So in the final condition, it should look uniform. It's not meant to look haphazard. And I apologize for cutting you off. I think you had a second question.
also, we can tell a lot of women have been together talking. As we travel, we see the brick
Mm-hmm.
on one side and on the other side.
Yes.
They're the same colors. What's going on there?
So predominantly in Morgan County, you notice that? That is because we don't want to paint over live traffic. So we painted half the bridge and did all of those, not only painting, but we put an anti-graffiti treatment on there as well. And so essentially when we switch over everyone onto those southbound lanes, then you'll see them start to progress forward with painting the bridges on the northbound side. So they'll look a bit more complete. Oh, they should be. They are as you can see from the pictures when Tim was presenting, I mean, pretty strong core. And then the exterior will actually be Indiana limestone and then actual hand-laid bricks. So they should be pretty sturdy.
And they are constructed brick by brick.
Oh, gentleman here. That will be, it's a combination. So within the limited access footprint, that will be INDOT. And then outside of that, it will be Morgan County. So currently it's ours to maintain. So if you think something is overgrown or unsafe. Yes. At the fisheries. Does it go all the way up the hill? We will double check. We will double check. The question is from Peters up to the church. We will double check because
driving north. Their two access points would be they could either exit at Ohio Street and take Artesian around, or they could exit at 252. Part of it is also, we have our blue sign program, where if you're on an interstate and it'll say, next exit, gas, and it'll have like a shield of a BP and a Shell and whatever other businesses, or similarly with restaurants or things like that. That signage, we make that available to businesses, but it's a program that they have to pursue, getting their shield on one of those signs. And so I think it would be really probably in the interest of Walmart and some of the other businesses to strategically think about where, if they wanted blue signs before Ohio Street or blue signs just before 252, that would be the best way to ensure that folks have the advance warning to be able to exit there. Are there any additional questions?
I can also, one point to that, Walmart is very familiar with what we're doing. A lot of those development is very familiar with what we're doing. And if you just look at the growth and development of that area right now, they're very, very bullish on the connection and making sure people have access to it. So a lot of growth, a lot of, we saw the healthcare industry go in there. We're seeing more stores, there's more restaurants being constructed in there. So we've been in communication with Walmart. They fully understand what the connection is, and so that's part of our outreach program.
Lost some restaurants over there.
Loss of what?
We have lost some restaurants in there, but lost some. I mean, like the healthcare and all that, that's more local. I'm concerned about them going through there.
Well, I think another thing to also think about, you do have a very valid point in how to make sure people get into that development area, but you also have to think about both sides of the interstate in that area. You have the high school. You also have a very compressed local road network that's there, sending a lot of commercial traffic through those neighborhoods. Ohio Street and 252 are better equipped to handle getting people in and out of that commercial area, and so that's something that was also on the radar of the city of Martinsville. They are making some enhancements between where Grand Valley Boulevard connects over to South Street and Ohio Street. They have a local, like a LPA project they're doing in that area to widen that out. But it was kind of trying to strike the balance of the needs of a variety of folks.
I guess I was just comparing like Martinsville, and like when you go to Bloomington, you can get off right there, all those areas. So that's a very populated area on both sides.
Right.
And I didn't understand.
I think
Well, one more distinction on that. What was different between Bloomington and where we're at, those interchanges were already constructed, a lot of the grade separations. This is the first community where everything was at grade. So
the mound of dirt in front of the country club, that remains because of the overpass Peters Road?
It will not be that tall in the future. So if you see the Morgan Street extension that is currently paved, goes to about Country Club, it'll be about that height. Right now, because we're still building the Peters Road overpass, that's functioning also as a storage area for our materials. Because, if everything lined perfectly, you'd be able to take a dump truck or fill out of the mile
understand a little bit